From the towering Wasatch Mountains of the American Southwest, we welcome you to this episode of Undiscovered Utah. This show focuses on the mysteries that surround the rugged, difficult, and sometimes deadly American Southwest. I'm your host, JB, and tonight we're going to share some insights for visiting Canyonlands National Park. So grab a drink, sit back, and enjoy the show. Let me tell you something. Southeastern Utah is an adventurer's paradise. 1.8 million people visit Arches National Park and Canyonlands National Park every year. So it is safe to say that they have been discovered. So why are we talking about them on Undiscovered Utah? Well, it's because these parks are huge and most visitors only see a small section of the park. In Canyonlands, there are very nice paved roads that take you to the main attractions. You can't skip these, they are just too spectacular. But there are lesser known areas that might be a little harder to access but are well worth the effort. First off, how did Canyonlands become a national park? A man by the name of Bates Wilson was serving as the superintendent of Arches National Monument in the early 1950s. In his free time, Bates started to explore an area south and west of Moab. He ended up in an area of the Colorado Plateau that was simply astonishing to behold. The area that Bates was exploring is referred to today as the Needles District of Canyonlands National Park. After exploring this area, Bates started to petition that this area be designated as another national park. Almost 15 years later, and after a lot of negotiation by Utah Senator Frank Moss, President Lyndon B. Johnson signed legislation to create the Canyonlands National Park. Bates Wilson was appointed as the first superintendent of the park and is considered the father of Canyonlands National Park. Canyonlands National Park is enormous. It's just under 340,000 acres. How in the world are you supposed to see all that in one trip? Well, you're not. Canyonlands is divided into 3 different sections. These sections are known as the Needles District, the Island in the Sky District, and the Maze District, which includes Horseshoe Canyon. To visit the Needles District, you need to travel south out of Moab for about 75 miles on US 191. Then turn on to 211 and head west following Indian Creek. Along this road, before you reach the park entrance, you will pass a historic rock art site that is one of the most famous in all the western United States. The site is called Newspaper Rock. For thousands of years, indigenous people have been leaving their depictions of life, travel, weather, and hunting on this rock face. There are over 650 petroglyphs spanning over 2,000 years that record the history of these native people, all in one spot. You should stop and see this Utah State Historic Landmark. This famous rock art site and the canyon itself is part of the Indian Creek National Monument. There is no fee to visit Newspaper Rock or to drive the scenic byway. Across the road from Newspaper Rock is a nice picnic and camping area that is free of charge and is a first-come, first-serve camping ground. Like many of the historic sites around the mismanaged Bears Ears National Monument debacle, many archaeological sites are being severely damaged. Since the designation of the monument, Much news and debate over the monument has brought thousands of visitors to the area. Prior to the designation of what has become known as Obama's Bears Ears National Monument, most people never knew this area existed. Now, these new visitors see these amazing sights and artifacts, and they apparently can't help themselves and have an uncontrollable desire to destroy the 2,000-year-old rock art and Native American dwellings that scatter this area. Maybe Mr. Obama should come and help protect these priceless sites. Look, I am not against people coming to Utah to visit the amazing wonders. That's what this podcast is all about. I do feel, however, that when people come to visit, they need to be respectful of the land, the artifacts, and the traditions of the local people. Okay, sorry about the rant. As you continue down Indian Creek Canyon, you might see rock climbers attempting to scale the large red sandstone cliff walls. This is a very popular location for this sport, and it's fun to watch. After traveling through Indian Canyon, you will reach the Canyonlands National Park entrance for the Needles District. This is a fee area. The Needles District is named for the Cedar Mesa sandstone spires that jut up from the landscape. Because the section of Canyonlands is a long drive from Moab, I would highly recommend staying in the much less crowded town of Monticello, Utah. Monticello offers nice hotels and restaurants and nice campgrounds with full hookups. Okay, I'm going to let you in on a little secret about Monticello, Utah. Monticello has one of the highest rated public golf courses in the nation. The course opened in 2001 and is called the Hideout. It is a full 18-hole golf course with a driving range and also has a smaller par 3 course for the younger folk. This course is beautiful from spring to fall and is a great way to start or finish a day exploring the Canyonlands Needle District. If you're a golfer, make sure to add this course to your travel plans. Once you enter the national park, there is a paved road that is extremely scenic that winds its way through the Needles and ends at the Big Spring Canyon overlook. There are some fun things to see along the road, like Roadside Ruin, Cave Springs, and Pothole Point. These are common places that people visit in the Needles District of Canyonlands, but what about the less common places? Even though the Needles District was the original section of Canyonlands National Park, it is much less visited than the Island in the Sky District, for example, mainly due to its distance from the Moab area. But for those willing to make the trip, there are great rewards awaiting them. Chesler Park is one of those rewards. There are 2 versions of the Chesler Park hiking trail, the short version and the long version. The shorter trail is to the Chesler Park Overlook. This trail is a total of 6 miles round trip. And yes, this is the shorter trail. The views of the Needles are stunning and well worth the hike. All Trails rates this hike as a 4.8 out of 5 stars. The longer version of the trail is the Chesler Park Loop. This longer version includes hiking through the Needles instead of viewing them from the viewpoint. The trail also includes a slot canyon section and an area that the trail takes you through a cave. How can you beat that? This trail is rated moderately strenuous and is about 11 miles round trip. Many have called the beauty of this trail unimaginable. Another reward is the Cyclone Canyon Trail. 16 miles out and back trail of pure joy and relatively flat, but it is still considered moderate. You will see very few people on this trail. You can't bring the puppy on this trail, and you should always check with the ranger station prior to bringing pets into any national park. Sometimes pets aren't even allowed in the car. Maybe hiking isn't your cup of tea. There are miles and miles of 4x4 trails in this section of the park. Remember that side-by-side UTVs are not allowed within any national park boundaries. But if you have a tricked out Jeep or other gnarly 4x4, be sure to give Elephant Hill Road a try. Many consider this to be the best off-road trail ever. This road is not for the faint of heart. There are a ton of other roads and trails to explore in the Needles District. Get out and explore this beautiful and unbelievable landscape. The Maze District of Canyonlands is the least accessible of any of the sections of the park. The Maze District requires at least 3 days to visit due to how remote this area is. But many visitors plan a week or more just for this one area. Because it is so remote, visitors are required to be prepared for self-rescue. What is self-rescue? If you have to ask that question, you shouldn't include the Maze District in your plans. Just skip it. Visitors must be 100% self-sufficient in the Maze District. The National Park Service highly recommends using a map to find and navigate the Maze District, as GPS systems tend to lead people astray, and this is not an area of Utah you want to get lost in. A trip to the Maze District of Canyonlands starts for most people in Green River, Utah, and follows the San Rafael Reef south along Utah Highway 24 down to Goblin Valley State Park. Just to the south of the turnoff to Goblin Valley, you will see a small sign to the Maze District. From this turnoff, it is 46 miles of dirt road to the southeast until you reach the Hans Flat Ranger Station. From the Ranger Station, it is another 3 to 6 hours of rough, high clearance 4x4 driving. The Ranger Stations at Hans Flat is open year-round from 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Here you can find books and maps. So why in the world would you go to this place? Well, one good reason is Horseshoe Canyon. I will say this, you can do the Horseshoe Canyon Trail in one day if that's all you want to do in this area. It's best to attempt this trail in the spring or fall. If you do try to hike it in the summer, be prepared. It's hot. Very hot. Unbelievably hot. If you're going to hike it in the summer, it is highly recommended that you start your hike very early in the morning so that you can be done before noon, or start your hike after 4 p.m. Either way, make sure you have working lights for each person in your group and at least 1 gallon of water for each person. On this trail, you will pass dinosaur footprints as you descend in the canyon below. This is always a treat to see these remnants of Utah's past. As you walk along a small stream in the bottom of the canyon, be advised, there is quicksand in the canyon. Yep, real-life quicksand. Pay attention and watch your step. Along the hike, you might notice some rock art here and there, and even find small ruins in alcoves along the way. But the real treat is at the end of the trail. In this very remote canyon are found some of the most significant rock art in all of North America. The site is called the Great Gallery. Life-size, otherworldly looking figures will greet you as you enter this sacred place. Reverence is a must. A national park ranger will stand guard to protect these incredible pictographs painted on the canyon walls. You will be shocked at how huge they are. This is a very spiritual location for many and should be traveled with extreme respect by all visitors. This hike to the Great Gallery is just over 11 miles round trip and will take 5 or more hours. I recommend packing a lunch. Other activities to enjoy in the Maze District include the four-wheel drive roads within the maze. These roads are very difficult to navigate, and they're quite remote. It is highly likely you could damage your vehicle on these roads. Four-wheel drive vehicles, motorcycles, and bikes are allowed in the maze. ATVs, UTVs, and OHVs, even if they are street legal, are prohibited within the park boundaries. Don't ask me why. If you go to the effort to get to the maze, you really need to check out the following landmarks. The Land of the Standing Rock, the Dollhouse, the Golden Stairs, and the Orange Cliffs. This is Utah at its most rugged point. The roads can easily break an axle. Be prepared, be smart, and let someone know your plans and when you expect to return. Let me tell you a true story about someone that didn't tell anybody his plans and got into some serious trouble in this area. Back in 2003, a young man who was very experienced mountaineer was visiting Blue John Canyon that is just south of Horseshoe Canyon and a tributary to Barrier Creek. He was traveling alone and had not told anyone what his plans were. No one knew where he was going or how long he planned to be gone. This young man started his descent into Blue John Canyon, and it was a beautiful early spring morning. Blue John Canyon offers some of the best narrows in the Southwest. It is a somewhat technical deep slot canyon that includes water-filled potholes and sheer drop-offs that must be rappelled down. Like the rest of the area, Blue John Canyon is very remote, and even though it is a beautiful slot canyon, not very many people visit. This young man had it all to himself. The young man's name was Aaron Ralton. After an enjoyable day, Aaron was nearing the bottom of the canyon. As Aaron was descending one of the rocky obstacles, there was a boulder that had become suspended in the canyon. Aaron needed to climb over the boulder to continue his journey. This is a fairly common occurrence when negotiating a slot canyon. As Aaron was lowering himself off the boulder became loose and shifted. It smashed Aaron's left hand, then rolled and crushed his right hand against the canyon wall. Aaron worked to free his hand from under the boulder, but the stone was just too heavy. Aaron was trapped. Because Aaron was almost to the bottom of the canyon, he had used up most of his water by the time the accident occurred. He only had about 12 ounces of water left. He was stuck in a canyon that was hot during the day, but because it was early spring, the nights were very cold. Hours passed by with no help, no rescue, nothing. The boulder that had trapped his hand weighed roughly 800 pounds. There was no way to escape, and obviously no help was coming. After being trapped for 5 days, Aaron was desperate. His water was gone. What little food he had was also gone. He was dehydrated and somewhat delirious. He decided that there was only one way he was going to be able to get out of this situation. And if he didn't act soon, he would die. He decided he needed to cut off his right arm halfway down the forearm. After what seemed to be an eternity of excruciating pain, Aaron had severed his own arm from his hand. But Aaron was still in a deep slot canyon that he still had to traverse. In front of him was a 65-foot cliff that had to be repelled. He had used the rubber hose on his camelback to make a tourniquet so he didn't bleed to death. After he negotiated the canyon and exited it, he still had 8 miles he had to hike to get back to his car. After walking about 6 miles, Aaron ran into a family. The family had food and water that they gave to Aaron, and then they rushed to find him help. Aaron was later rescued by a helicopter and was in really bad shape. Aaron was lucky to survive, but he had to pay an extreme price. The reason I told this grim story was to show how dangerous this part of Utah can be. You must go in prepared for the worst and hope for the best. If you do that, you will see some amazing country that not many humans ever get to see. But it does come with some very real risk. The last area we need to talk about in Canyonlands is by far the most visited section of the park. It is called Island in the Sky. The entrance to this part of Canyonlands is located near Moab, Utah, and Arches National Park. Island in the Sky is a massive mesa that is more than 1,000 feet above the surrounding landscape. This is also the most user-friendly part of the park. You can spend anywhere from an hour to a day or two exploring this part of the park. From Island in the Sky Pay Station and Visitor Center, there is a scenic drive that will take you to many stunning overlooks, each with its unique features. Some overlook the Colorado River, and others overlook the Green River. The two best are probably the Grand View Overlook and the Green River Overlook. But if you have time, stop and see them all. If the weather is stormy, consider yourself lucky, because this area is insanely beautiful with storm clouds in the background. You will most likely fill all of your cell phone memory with photos from Island in the Sky. One of the most photographed sites in Island of the Sky is called Mesa Arch. To get the best photos, you need to be an early riser and be at the arch before sunrise. There is a short hike to the arch, so factor that into your travel time. You have to do this at least once in your life. I know you're on vacation, and very few people like to get up before sunrise and hike in the dark to an arch that is literally on a 1,000-foot cliff. But boy, howdy, what a sight to behold. Another fun hike that you can do at a more reasonable hour is Upheaval Dome. This massive, round, odd rock formation was once thought to be a huge underground salt deposit that dissolved, and the ground on top of the salt deposit collapsed and left behind this weird formation. However, now researchers believe that it might be a massive meteor impact site. If you've ever had the opportunity to visit the Meteor Crater National Landmark in Arizona by Winslow, that crater is about 3/4 of a mile across. Upheaval Dome is 1.3 miles across, almost twice the size as the crater in Arizona, and also about twice the size as the Camelot crater on the moon. The whole family will enjoy looking over this stunning view. Another fantastic adventure in this section of the park is a trail called the White Rim Trail. This trail is 100 miles long. Yeah, that was not a typo. It's 100 miles long. This trail takes days to complete and can be done on bike or in a four-wheel drive vehicle. One very interesting geological feature along the White Rim Trail is called the Black Crack. The Black Crack is a natural fissure that is about 3 feet across, but it's 65 feet deep. That's deep enough to kill you if you fall into it. If you dare to jump over this deep abyss, you might want to gird up your loins first. There is so much to see and do in Canyonlands National Park. You will definitely need more than one visit to this huge park. If you have visited Canyonlands National Park, I would love to hear from you. What is your favorite section and why? What is your favorite site or trail? You can email us at info@undiscoveredutah.com. Thank you for listening to tonight's episode. If you would like more information about this episode, again, we would love to hear from you. You can email us at info@undiscoveredutah.com. You can also find us on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram, and be sure to follow us. Just search for Undiscovered Utah. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Undiscovered Utah. Join me next week as I share more about the Great Southwest. Good night, everybody.